A very great morning and good to have you this beautiful morning. My name is Andrew Chamagero, and the conversation we're having this morning is a mindset change for wealth creation, ending child marriage and teenage pregnancy. Now, this is the national theme of the World Population Day celebration that happened in Kumi district earlier this month. Now, this conversation is powered by Reproductive Health Uganda, and we need to understand the mindset change. And to bring this conversation home with me in studios, I have remarkable panelists who are going to help us dive into this conversation. First, I have Mr. Charles Musena from NPC, and he happens to have a wide kind of conversation and knowledge and experience about the conversation we're having. We have Honorable Okwonzi Alfred, the LOC5 of Arua City District. And we still have Madame Mohindo Monica. She happens to be a teacher from Nyamwamba Standard Senior Secondary School in Kasese. And you, my great viewer, you can follow this conversation on the digital platforms. That's on Twitter and Facebook as well as YouTube. Look for NTV Uganda and be a part of this conversation. Good morning and good to have you.
Good morning, Andrew.
I want to start off with Monica. You are a teacher and you interact with the next generation. You are at the core of the next generation. Looking at the issue of mindset change in collaboration with the reproductive health, what do you see?
Thank you, the moderator. As a young teacher, as I can say, and I have gotten a chance to interact with the young people because I'm a teacher. So when it comes to mindset change, we still have a very big problem.
As a country? As
a country, and as well as my district as a whole, Kasese district, because things there are really, the percentage is skyrocketing here. When it comes to teenage pregnancies, early marriages, I really feel so sad. So when it comes to the mindset change, here I call upon our political leaders, I call upon my fellow teachers, our parents and the youth, because there are some things we happen to take for granted, that this is like this and that, and we stop at that, which is not the right thing. So as a teacher, I would advocate and call upon the cultural leaders, political leaders, the young people, the teachers to come on board. We stand together to lift up the country Uganda, because the young people, they are the next generation, and they are the next member of parliament, members of parliament, teachers, the presidents, and whatever dignitaries. So we have to stand up and we fight against the abusers, the defilers, and stigmatizing the young people.
The young pregnant.
The young mothers we have. So you find that these people are not comfortable, they feel lonely, they are not loved, they end up hating themselves. And out of hating themselves, the world becomes really not friendly to them.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Monica. Alfred, you come from Arua. I was in Arua just a few months ago when we were making the stories on TV about the drug abuse. But in that time, I happened to interact. It was around the time of exams of UAE, and I followed a young girl. She was called Jessica. We ran the story on TV here. She was a senior 3 student by the time she got pregnant. And she had to do her exams after childbirth, 3 days after childbirth. It was very breaking. And we tried to follow it up, and we understood that the families had agreed that, to give her to the young boy's family who had impregnated her. Given that you come from a district with all that kind of, I call her a United Nations of sort.
United States of Arua.
Of Arua, because we have those from South Sudan.
Yes.
We have those from Congo.
Yes.
And all this in the mix, you as a leader, what do you think we're missing with regards to the mindset as the youth to address this issue of teenage pregnancy and early motherhood?
Oh, thank you very much, Andrew. I must say, mindset change is pillar number 5 of Paris Development Model that aims at putting communities at the center stage of identifying issues that affect them, issues that affect their lives.
That's true.
And therefore, when you look at this, it aims at identifying negative cultural beliefs, practices, and behaviors that worsen people's livelihood or lives in the communities. So when you look at this, it clearly puts the communities at the center stage. Are they happy about the teenage pregnancies? Are they happy about it? Is it a good thing happening in the communities? Definitely no. So it also puts the cultural institutions at the forefront in identifying some of these issues. How were things being done in the past and how are things being done now? Are we happy of the way things are being done now? Meaning now that the negative cultural practices under the mindset change pillar, we have to discourage negative cultural practices and promote those positive ones to make sure that we do things in the right way. But and one thing which is at the forefront is positive thinking. Positive thinking in terms of looking at things in a positive way that improves people's lives is core. So in this case, the culture in West Nile or in the country at large is a situation where you see families tend to have pressure on the youth to get married quickly so that cows begin coming home. Particularly when they see in ladies' breasts are beginning to shoot out. There is no measurement for it, but when they see the breasts coming out, now what rings in their minds, when will the cows begin coming home? And even the mothers begin to say, if there's a slight disagreement in the family, why don't you get married to your partner? Why are you disturbing us in this family? So you see this kind of mindset, which is negative. And in the end, you know, it puts the youth, the young girls, the teenagers, it puts them off. And now, it causes stress for them, mental tortures for them, and then they make a decision without, you know, weighing the consequences. So I must say, in this particular aspect, we have negative cultural practices that tend to force young girls to get married. And under this theme, we must change that kind of negative cultural practice.
Thank you so much, Alfred. I'll get back to you, especially when it gets to the issue of culture mindset. My senior here, Charles Musena from the National Population Council. What is the picture like? Because now you people deal with a lot of statistics and data, and you have a whole picture. What do you see from the National Population Council? Are we in a red zone? Is it daring? Should we start strategies like 10 years ago to save the situation?
Thank you so much, Andrew. I would like to start by saying that our country has always moved towards the right direction, and a lot of effort has been put into fighting child marriage and teenage pregnancy. Both, and these are efforts by government, but also our partners, including the civil society, for example, Reproductive Health Uganda. But then we don't seem to be performing very well. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, about 25% of girls in this country would get pregnant before the age of 20. You know what that means? That out of every 4 girls, 1 would get pregnant
before 20 years.
Before the age of 20. Now, that alone is very, very terrible. Unfortunately, when the COVID pandemic came into place, it worsened the situation. Currently, some people are talking about 31% of young girls getting pregnant before the age of 20. Now, each year as a country, we commemorate World Population Day on July 11th. And we commemorate this day to highlight some of these population issues. This time round, we went to Teso, we were in Kumi, and as you may be aware, teenage pregnancy is lowest in Kigezi at 16% and highest in Teso sub-region at 31%. So it was very good to go and re-energize the campaign against child marriage and teenage pregnancy right at the center of the problem in Teso. And this challenge of child marriage and teenage pregnancy is mainly caused by a few issues. Like the chairperson of Arua has mentioned, we have those social, cultural norms, the bad ones, where people believe that girls should be married off early. And then the other challenge is poverty. We are still grappling with the challenge of poverty. So in communities that are poor, they tend to marry off young girls to make some little bride wealth. You understand? You marry off your girl and get about 2 heads of cattle. But also for families that are in a dire situation, you know, each child you have on the compound must be fed. So if you married off 1 or 2 girls, then you're reducing the burden on the family. And then we also have other challenges like the high rate of school dropout in this country, the low value that is attached to girls' education in some of our communities. But at the end of the day, child marriage and teenage pregnancies have dire social, economic consequences, health consequences to these young girls, but also they cannot continue with their education to acquire skills that would make them very productive in future. And then from a population perspective, when a girl starts bearing children at an early age, they are likely to have many children in their lifetime. You understand? So our campaign is to encourage parents to keep their children in school until completion, with a hope that when young girls and boys stay in school until completion, you're going to delay the onset of childbearing. And then educated women tend to have fewer children because they have to grow their careers. Yes, so that's what we're talking about. It's a huge problem, but I'm happy that government and our partners are working towards solving this problem. And that's why we came up with this theme. Because it's very important to end child marriage and teenage pregnancy. But if you're to end child marriage and teenage pregnancy, the beginning should be wealth creation, because poverty seems to be the biggest problem. And then, of course, to get people out of poverty, you need to change their mindsets, to change the social cultural norms that the gentleman from Arua was talking about. You still need mindset. So this is a very good theme, and we are going to go on with this campaign for the next 1 year. Thank you.
Wow, great conversation there coming in from Mr. Charles Musana. Those following this conversation online, follow NTV, and I'll tap some of your feedback, some of the opinions where, you know, may not all be captured here, but you have it right there, and we need to tap into it. Monica, as a teacher in your very place where you work, the experiences in the communities, what are some of the leading factors of a teenage pregnancy? Chelsea has hinted on a couple of things, which is poverty and the mindset issue. But there are those underlying factors or push factors possibly the media may not be in position to capture. But you interact with these girls every day. You have a broader perspective possibly than us.
Thank you, the moderator. As a teacher, the key factors that lead to teenage pregnancies and early marriages, as
Charles.
Mr. Charles has already said about it, there is poverty in Kasese. It is too much in Kasese. There is poverty. And secondly, there are some parents who are involving their children in their domestic issues with the husbands, the misunderstandings.
In domestic violence.
Yes, domestic violence. You find that because the mother has had a misunderstanding with the husband, so you find that he's inflicting that anger on the children. And if at all the father earns lesser than the wife, so you find that the woman will not provide as required to these young girls. They say, you go to your father, he will provide for everything. And now in a place where the father is not able to provide, what will happen? Of course, these young girls go out. They look for other men who can give them what they need, who can satisfy their needs. So you find that out of this act, you find that these girls, they have gotten pregnant. Others decide to elope. They get married when they're still very young. Then another thing, there is a problem in the parents' privacy.
Okay.
The young kids are really spoiled. They're becoming spoiled. You find a scenario where a family has 2 rooms, the sitting room and a bedroom. But they have kids. The young ones sleep together with them in their own bedroom. And the old ones, you find that they have other relatives in the same house. The maids are there.
In a two-roomed house? They have a
in
maid?
the same house, yes. In the same house, yes.
Wow.
Yes. So you find that when these people go to Nambole, so you find that the whistles are blown, the kids are in the same room, yes, regardless of whether other people are in the house. So now, what do you expect to come out of these young girls and young boys in the in the house? Automatically, they will practice what parents practice. So you find that these young girls grow up when they are already groomed about these issues, because it is evidenced in their own. And so therefore, with that, I would request the parents out there to have privacy. These young girls and boys, they need to be respected, actually, because they also have their rights to be respected. So they should give them privacy.
Do you think, Monica, by any chance, that the lack of candid conversations about sexuality in homes, in one way, it has exacerbated the conversation of teenage pregnancy? Are parents really talking to their daughters about the dangers of teenage pregnancy and what comes after?
Thank you. To be sincere, a very few parents, and I will say the educated ones, a few of them, not all educated parents are talking to their children. No. So, some of them who are doing this, their kids are okay. They are okay. But go deep in the villages, like my Mahango in Kasese district.
It's daring.
In the hills up there. So you find that the children, they lack ignorance. They have ignorance. They don't know what to do. Even when the consequences of having early marriages, they are green, because their parents are also mute. They know, but they don't want to talk to their parents. Why do they, to their children? Why do they fear to talk to their children? Because they feel like it is in some kind of being ashamed before them. And probably some of them think that they are exposing their children to this. Little knowing that now, in keeping quiet, then these kids will explore on their own.
Which is deadly.
Yes. So it's better our parents out there talk to our young sisters about the consequences of early pregnancies, and even the importance of abstaining. Yes.
Thank you, Monica. Coming to you, Alfred, you as a leader of Aroa, what are you leaders doing about this? Because we are finding families sitting under a tree shade and agreeing to marry off teenagers because she got pregnant for me, and I'll sit with Charles under a tree and we agree that, you know, they can pay me in bits. Maybe they can give me 2 goats for now and then a cow comes later. What are the leaders doing? Are the leaders capacitated enough with the law to imprison or to punish the perpetrators of this vice from the village level?
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrew. I think one thing as leaders that we have done is to take note of this, let me use the word outbreak.
It's a pandemic.
It's epidemic in the country. So it's a big problem. We have to take responsibility for it as leaders, because we cannot afford to lead society that is immoral.
Very much so.
And actually this year I was about to declare outbreak of sex in Arua district.
What's going on?
You know, the rampant teenage pregnancies and unacceptably high. You know, the societal value is that sex is meant for adults, the aged.
Yeah.
But you now realize it is now younger ones, the teenagers who are deeply involved in it, and they are the most sexually active. So there's a big problem. So as leaders, what we have done is to accept that something has gone wrong, particularly with the moral fibers. And the values, the family values, the cultural values have gone to dogs. They are no longer there. So once we acknowledge this fact, and then it becomes a driving force for us as leaders. So in Arua district and also West Nile at large, the law is very clear. The minimum age of consent for sex is 18 years and above. The law is very clear. So where you see a teenager pregnant means that this teenager was in one way or the other involved in sex sometime back. We have to trace this. Without compromising, we have to allow the law to take its course from LC1 level. Because that is where government starts, at the LC1 level. So what we have known is that even the LC1s have involved themselves in negotiating
Very much so.
some of these issues, and yet the law is very clear. So as me, as a leader here for Arua district, I've put it a point that LC1 must be knowledgeable, must be educated, particularly on what needs to be done, and then must be aggressively following this and report whatever is in the community. If they can't, they should be able to write a petition to LC2, LC3, and even up to district. The law allows them to do that. So we will not leave, we don't leave such scenarios. We want the law to take its course.
Alfred, I love that, but before you come in, Charles, I'm looking at an LC1 who earns pretty much little money, and the perpetrator has come with so much money to let their son off the hook. What are you leaders doing to make sure that the integrity of a leader who is not well equipped financially stays principled to the integrity of what the law says,
Andrew,
and does not get the money?
That is true. That is ethical dilemma. We call it ethical dilemma. There's money here, but here there's an issue of integrity. For me, my LCs, I want them to stick to the integrity. Let them maintain the integrity.
And how
because it's not the money.
How do you give them that capacity that they won't take the money, they will stick to the integrity?
That is why we are in touch with them. Like me, when I go to a community for a particular function, I make sure the first person I look for is the LC1 chairman. When the function is done, I must pass via the home of the LC1 chairman. First of all, to see whether his homestead is ideal. Okay? It's all about poverty. If LC1's home is ideal, is good, the homestead is very good, and the children in school, it is difficult to compromise such an LC. But if LC1 is not a model, then you realize that you will be taken up by events. So this is the ethical dilemma that we are trying to address. And we are also trying to push forward that if possible, these LC1s must all be trained formally in the room. Because for me, in Arua district, I want this district to be a model district in the heart of West Nile. Why? Because it has given birth to the rest of 12 districts in the region. It's not only a mother district, but grandmother district, and must lead by example. So that means now from LC1 level, we must be able to speak the same language. The law is very clear. Even with the law enforcement officers, we must be able to speak the same language, promote well-being of the the
of the
community
people.
members.
Charles, you wanted to jump in there briefly.
Yes, I want to comment on two issues. One was by Monica, and I would like to thank her. You know, Andrew, if 31% or 25% of the girls in this country are getting pregnant before the age of 20,
It's alarming.
then it's a fact that they are having sex.
That's true.
You understand? But we seem to be a country that is stuck in denial. You know, you talk about sexuality education in schools, religious leaders come up and they say, you want to teach our children about
Bad manners.
Bad manners.
Nobody is interested in teaching young children to have sex. We are talking about
Reality.
age-appropriate sexuality education. You know, for the young ones, let us give them information.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at all these challenges, they are lowest in Kampala. I'll look at child marriages. Child marriages are highest in northern Uganda at 59% and lowest in Kampala at 21%. Why? Because children in Kampala have access to information. You understand? So let us promote age-appropriate sexuality education. And then coming on to the issue of implementing the law. In my view, one of the challenges we have is actually democracy. You know, if you're an elected leader and you want to come back after 5 years, then it becomes a challenge for you to go out and challenge your voters. You understand?
Yes, implementing the law.
Yes, implementing the law becomes very hard. So if there is a way, now we are promoting PDM, which is definitely going to help us get our people out of poverty and give them an alternative source of income instead of marrying off young girls. But can we also empower those parish chiefs? You know, when we were growing up, we had very powerful
They were very strong.
parish chiefs. Can we empower them to follow up on some of these issues, because they are not elected? You know, these are public servants. Yes, I just wanted to comment about
I think that makes sense. Monica, you still wanted to come in. Before you come back, Alfred, Monica?
Thank you. Actually, I would like to supplement on Honorable Alfred's view. When it comes to implementing the law, remember the implementers, some of them, as in the police officers, some of them are corrupt.
You've seen this in Dewan?
Yes, yes. Some of them are corrupt, and you find that they liaise with the parents and the defilers. You find that issue, they dismiss it. They're like, you go back to the village and negotiate from there. So you find that at the end of the day, the girl is pregnant. There is no any assistance that is rendered to them, and there is no follow-up at all. So when this happens, it gives way to other people to do the same, because after all, they want to be punished.
So the precedents keep going.
Keeps on going.
Alfred.
Yeah, I just wanted to say what my brother Charles had put. If a leader is a visionary leader, this indicator where the teenage pregnancy is very high becomes an opportunity for this leader. If he addresses
in time,
by 2026, when elections will be done, the manifesto will be, look, when I came in, the teenage pregnancy was at this rate. Okay? 31%. But by the time I'm closing for elections, the teenage has reduced, teenage pregnancy and child marriage has reduced it to percentage of 13. So you get to see that this is a clear indication that a leader has worked. And for me, as chairman of the district, I want voters to go in that direction.
But Alfred,
not really looking at this.
Do voters understand data?
It goes back to, you know, how a leader, if a leader is visionary, how you package
the information,
the data to them. They may not understand the data, but if you package where you are from and where you are now, this is a clear indication that this is a hard-working leader and must be put back. Two, there's a breakage in something that we are not taking note of. Traditionally and culturally, a man is head of family. He is the security officer in that family. Now, the question we could ask is, where was this man when the lady went out to get pregnant?
When the child
that's where I'm coming.
So now, for me,
the male engagement, all these conversations we're having, the Miami male champion, in reproductive health, Do you think we have engaged the men adequately enough to engage this conversation?
That is the challenge I've realized. It's, I'm sure it must be all over the country, because when Uganda,
it's global. It's global.
the family management is left entirely to the women.
Yeah.
I don't know the situation in Kasese, but in Arua, it is women struggling. Now when the men leave, they go to stay by the roadside, either counting number of vehicles, pedestrians passing,
eating golo,
and so forth. But when they live like that, you'll realize that they did not leave the mother with flour, they did not leave mother with beans, not even paste, not even cooking oil. And in the evening, this man comes back. One would expect him to come with a polythene bag containing some food stuff. But the man comes back with the smell of alcohol. So when does the man do his work?
He's absent.
He's absent. So you realize that these young girls and the boys, they are trying to take advantage of absence of the
father,
security officer, who in this case is the father. Now, in this perspective, in Arua district, I've started a campaign. All men must be home.
At what time?
By 6 p.m. they should be at home to check on the family members.
How are you faring? These are your voters, Alfred.
Yeah, I passed to them.
Are they responding positively in a way?
Women are applauding me like nothing. Andrew. Women are appreciating me.
I'll be coming there.
Over that, women are appreciating me so much. Even when in 2025, 26, even if men don't vote for me, I know I have
you have a voting block. Just to pick it from Alfred, Charles. When we come to male engagement, I'm a male champion, and trust me, every time I go in the communities, these are hard conversations. These uncomfortable conversations. Male engagement. From the word go, reproductive health information to the men was branded as a health issue that was meant for the women. So I come from the school of thought that as a country, from the word go, the male were left behind, and we are playing catch up 20, 30 years later. How do we deal with the male engagement? Now, this comes from the boys to the men in our communities. Charles.
You know what? That's a very important question, and it's really pertinent to me. You know, when we talk about male involvement or male engagement, people think of sitting men there and you sensitize them. But for me, it's above and beyond that.
Yeah.
You know, we talk of girl-child education, keeping girls in school until completion. Where are the boys? We are leaving the boys out to go and run after these girls who are in school and impregnate them. So male engagement and involvement for me is about providing opportunities for both girls and boys. Equal opportunities. Young children who are in that age of going to school should be in class regardless of whether they are boys or girls. And then moving on to the adults. Like my brother said, you know, men are the heads of their family. You understand? So how do you go to this community with a campaign without
the men,
without engaging the leaders, and you hope that that campaign is going to be successful? So we should be doing more to engage men. But I also want to go back to where we started from when we talked about poverty being an underlying cause of the issues we are talking about. You know, Monica talked about people sharing 1 or 2 rooms with their children, and in that way they spoil them. And then Honorable is wondering where the parents are when the girls are going to get pregnant. Now I want to give you a scenario. You're a poor man in the village with your grass thatched what? Huts or house. Now you have 2 choices. You either sleep with your children in this tiny hut and spoil them, you understand, or give them privacy by constructing for them a separate hut, and they will run out at night without your knowledge. So because of poverty, some of these parents are caught between a rock and a hard place.
Charles, I choose to disagree. Isn't this where it brings us to the mindset issue? Because if I have talked to my sons and daughters, and I've given them clarity on sexual conversations. And I've told them, you boys, you can go out in the night and you drink whatsoever you want to drink. But these are the dire consequences. If me as a father or the head of the house, I'm living an exemplary life. Because if you come home, like Honorable is saying, by 6 you're home, you sit with your children, because
yes.
it is then the role of you, the father, to inculcate this mindset direction. You offer leadership. I think that's where the men we are losing out. That we are not offering the leadership that is expected of us. And then whether they are sleeping in the different apartment or different room or hut, the mindset will keep them locked in there even in the night. If it is the girls, the mindset will maybe keep them there, and they will be like, we're doing this for the purpose. So the poverty could be one issue, but the underlying issue goes back to the issue of the mindset.
Absolutely.
And Charles, this is why I want to engage you. What do we need to trigger this mindset change? Because as a country, I think we are so taken up by being given. Every time, especially my generation, we always want to be given. We don't want to go through the processes, and as such, our children equally just want to be given than to earn, and that's where the disparities of teenage pregnancies seem to soar.
You know what, Andrew? You're absolutely right. You know, we need to change the mindset of the parents, but also
the children themselves,
And that's where education becomes very important, because I don't have any problem sitting with my daughter and we discuss sex. I'll ask her, are your pads finished? You understand, I've brought you to school to study, not to look at the boys. Time for that will come, because I'm empowered. So we need to empower these people. But what I'm saying is that beyond the mindset change, if you cannot afford a pair of pads for your daughter, if you cannot buy knickers for your daughter, then however much you talk, perhaps she may be easily lured. Yes, that's the problem.
That's true.
Let me come back to Monica there. In the context of poverty and wealth creation, if we have a clear mindset, Monica, and we have the family well guided, and they're doing something, could this be a silver bullet to change the numbers and the figures that are skyrocketing in the entire country in the context of Kasese as well?
Thank you. Actually, I would say it would work. But before I talk, before I come to that, what I have to clarify about is that taking children to school is not enough. It is not enough. We have to create awareness to these young girls out there. Because now, if we take these girls to school, yet they are ignorant about sex education, they will become culprits. So as we do this, we should also put in a hand the civil society organizations, political leaders, and the government as a whole. They should come up. Because actually, when I talk about my district, Kasese, I thank Reproductive Health Uganda. It has really tried its best. Because on 5th May, we met the departmental heads of the district council. We presented to them, and we had our smart asks. Allocating youth corners,
friendly youth corners in health centers, and then allocating some funds to facilitate these youth-friendly corners. Yes. Actually, we met them and they discussed it in their council, and we are waiting for the what? For the outcome. So Reproductive Health Uganda has really tried its best in Kasese, and we have peer educators. I'm one of them. I'm a teacher. I see the energy.
So they are there, and we are trying our best, and we are going to have campaigns. We are going to have debates in schools. We've already chosen them schools in the constituencies where we'll be going to create awareness in these teenagers. So if we can, however much poverty is there, but it shouldn't be a blame as in why we should remain quiet. No, we shouldn't. We should keep on. Actually, I have a statement that says, ignorance kills faster than knowing. So if you know something, really, you even try your best to prevent yourself. If you know the consequences, you try your level best. However much it may be difficult for you, but you try your best to see that you avoid it. So I think to me that one is better. We stand up together, we
can push forward.
Yeah.
Alfred, we have seen issues where you, the leaders in power, are clashing with CSOs and NGOs that mobilize at times to possibly talk to people about reproductive health. And these conversations, time and again, we have seen the RDCs, the DPCs, the RPCs, when they're these barazas that are organized to send more of these conversations down to the last mile, there are always clashes. How do we break the issue of bureaucracy that these conversations can reach further to the last mile?
Why are they clashing? They want people to produce, continue encouraging teenage pregnancies?
I think it's the lack of leadership still, because the bureaucracy on how to hold the baraza, Chelsea may be in the know, that you need a letter from the RPC, then to the DPC, then to the cow, then to... That at times in a way hinders the conversations to reach the last mile, and we're wondering, how are you as leaders cutting this?
It goes back to the kind of leader you have. If a leader is visionary and goes back to what I was saying, accepting that there's a problem is one step forward towards causing a change.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if a leader accepts that there's a problem, then the leader will all be outside there to look for the partners who are ready to come and support him or her. Now, such a leader will always create the most conducive environment. And I think if that has been happening, I must say it is unfortunate. For me, as a leader of a rural district, I want to create the most conducive environment ever for all partners and government programs to succeed.
On these conversations.
In these conversations. I want to say, if that is not done, it will not be good. Partners have come because there's a gap. They are footing the missing gaps. Ideally, it should have been government asked to do it. We have done our part, but because there are still some gaps. That is the reason of the existence of CSOs and NGOs to come and foot the missing gaps. So, a visionary leader will always be, spot on to say, yes, partner A, you come, address this area, go to this corner, go to this, I have this one here. He becomes number 8 in the football field,
To make sure that we actually score.
That is the most important thing that I wanted to say. But that said, there are two things I wanted to react to. We're talking about sex education by the parents. The whole thing that we are talking about here needs commitment, needs energy, needs time, needs resources to be committed. We are talking about sex education by parents. The question I have is, do they have the necessary language?
Even the information.
And the information.
Is it accurate?
Is it accurate? These are the questions I'm having. Okay? Now, if they have that, that will be very fine. Now, a situation where you see also, I still go back to men. A man is a visitor, is a visitor in his own home. And when does he know the concerns of the children? For me, in my family, when my daughters receive love letters from boyfriends, I am the one replying.
Come on, Alfred.
I reply.
You reply?
Yes, I reply. They give to me because
why don't you to reply?
I have created the most conducive environment between me and them where we feel freely, we discuss. They even feel free to talk to me than their mother.
Because you're present.
If they run out of pads, they come to me because they know.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we needed to encourage. 2, at village level, I still believe the forums will not be at district level, not even sub-county level, not even parish level, village level. Do we have models?
At the village level.
At the village level. If we don't, if we want to cause a lasting change, we must put in place models at the village level. 2, we must set role models, like if we have the village members, he can be our model for the youths. And that is how we get to cause changes in the community.
I hear you. Charles, when he speaks about that, one thing that comes to me is the presence of adequate and timely information. As a country, do we have rightful vehicles of information to the last mile? If so, is our language appropriate? And do we know where to find the teenagers and the youth, especially the men?
Andrew, I would like to say that we are working.
Yes.
And as we said, of course, our work as government is complemented by our
Partners.
very good partners and stakeholders in the civil society. But the truth is that we still have quite a lot of work to do. You know, he talked about model homes. You understand?
Yeah.
At National Population Council, we're establishing model homes across the country. And the project is called the PHE project, Population Health and Environment. You see, they work in tandem. But then, do you have funding to do this across the country in a small period of time? And it's not only funding. Do you have the human resource? You understand? So we still have a number of challenges here and there, but we are really trying. And then I'm also very happy that the media was liberalized. You have radio stations across
the country.
Unfortunately, we have a bit of a challenge in the media. Training is a challenge, and at times our colleagues in there give information that is contradictory
to the real
to the information that we're giving out. But we also try to engage the media that each quarter, in every 3 months, we will train at least 20 journalists at National Population Council to ensure that we are speaking the right language. And then we also engage the districts with a hope that after engaging them, they are going to go to the grassroots and engage the people. And we are not the only people doing this. Ministry of Health is doing this. Ministry of Education is doing this in schools. And then Ministry of Local Government is also engaging the local government. So we hope to achieve quite a lot, but we must also do a lot to ensure that we get where we want to be. You know, Andrew, if you can allow me, as a country, we have a vision. And our vision is called Vision 2040. We want to transform our people from being peasants to being a modern society. And then we are seeking to grow our GDP per capita from 506 in 2010 to $9,500 in the year 2040. Now, to implement this Vision 2040, we have medium-term plans, which we call the National Development Plans. We are currently implementing the third National Development Plan. Now, the second National Development Plan and the third recognize harnessing the demographic dividend as a strategy that will enable us to achieve Vision 2040. And if you are to harness the dividend, you need to lower the rate at which the population is growing. I'm not talking about lowering the population or reducing the population. Population growth is a good thing, but it must grow at a sustainable rate. Now, the biggest challenge we have in this country is the fact that teenage pregnancy and child marriage are the biggest contributor to the high rate of population growth in this country. Because our population growth at a rate of 3.0% per annum, and that may sound small, but it's the second highest in the world, only second to that of Niger. Women in this country are still having an average of 5.4 children. You understand? That is so high. So our message, one, as a country, we take it to be a human right for couples to determine how many children they want to produce. So we will never dictate. But we should give people the right information to make informed choices. And the truth is, produce a few children that you can take very good care of. Yes.
Well, this conversation is powered by Reproductive Health Uganda. My name is Andrew Chamagero, and if you're one of those a part of these conversations on Twitter, on YouTube and Facebook, I really want to commend you. And those watching at home, and you can't actually talk back to us, but you're watching. It's your mandate as a citizen to actually take these conversations critically. If you're a man and you're listening to these conversations, please take up the mantle as a man and start to engage your family, offer leadership as a man. And if you're a mother and you're listening to these conversations, can we start to sit and we have these conversations in one or the other? Coming to you, Monica, before we go into the break, let's talk about contraceptives. What is the conversation like in Kasese when it gets to contraceptives? Are we having these conversations of contraceptives in your areas?
Thank you. When I talk about contraceptives, that information, they know it very well, but we have some parents who think that we are spoiling the young ones
By addressing
them to yes. But now, if the young girls cannot really be able to abstain, should we just watch them do what they want? At the end of the day, they are impregnated? No, we don't have to do this, because as parents, if you just mute and you watch, then they are going to be the culprits. They are going to give birth to kids who will become again, actually I'll call it a burden in the family. So for those young girls who cannot really abstain, what should be done? The only possible way is to be introduced to contraceptives. Then these others who can really abstain, what should be done for them to stick on the point of abstinence? We have to encourage them the more, such that they can remain abstaining until they reach the right time for them. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. The conversation is getting much more heated. Those on Twitter love the conversation. This is my very first panel, but the conversation is still going on into the next hour. I really want to thank you, my panelists, for these great submissions. Mohindo, Monica, a teacher from Kasese, and I had a Honorable Alfred Okunzi. Okunzi, right?
Yes, yeah.
Good to have you. And Charles Musana here, hoping to come from the National Population Council. The conversation is not stopping here. The call is one. Have kids by choice, not by chance. And those you have, make sure you give them enough attention. If you're a man, for the male, let's be present for our children. Let's give them the support they need. And to the leaders, the call has never been as much more amplified than now, that we need to engage our communities from the village level. We'll take a break for now and we'll return more with more of this conversation. The conversation still goes on. I'm Andrew Chamagero, and this conversation is great about the wealth creation in terms of the teenage pregnancy, and not only that, how the law needs to actually engage this. This program is powered by Reproductive Health Uganda, and for my second panel, I'm joined by the Executive Director of Reproductive Health Uganda, Mr. Jackson Chakweko, and of course we have Honorable Miriam Matembe, and she's back. The last time we were here, we shared about the issue of teenage pregnancy and defilement, and she's still here back to actually sound more about that. And we have a peer educator, Alina Sam. Be a part of this conversation on the other digital platforms. Good afternoon, gentlemen and lady.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you. Alina,
Yes.
I am grateful that we are having a youth talking about this conversation. When you go on the ground and you're talking to the youth, where information is being disseminated by the models you're using, what do you see?
Can I first interrupt you?
Please.
I've been watching the panel which has just left. We are talking about teenage pregnancy and early marriages.
Yes.
There were, I think, 3 men, 1 woman.
Yes.
Now I come here, 1 woman, you are
2 men. We are 3 men.
And yet the affected people are the women.
And the women.
Now, you think...
It brings to the context.
Don't you think if you brought them here, they would be telling you their challenges themselves rather than you talking about them?
But again, Honorable Matem, that's a very good insight. But again, the male engagement, this brings the context of male engagement to the core of this conversation.
They were engaged long ago because they are the ones who impregnate the girl. They are effectively engaged.
We shall get there. Alina,
Yes.
what do you see when you go to the communities? That is Mama. When she gets in, that's how she starts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once again, thank you very much. My name is Alina.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm a young person who comes from a noble community, and I belong to these people, and I'm in them.
Nice.
Yeah, so when I'm in them, the rates of teenage pregnancy, HIV, and in teens, it is really escalating and very high. So now, mostly we see an issue of school dropouts. Yeah, we are seeing an issue of young men lacking what to do, jobs. Yeah, we are seeing an issue of lack of information about sexuality. So now, one thing I've realized as a young person and as a peer educator, I've realized that there is still a very big gap between our elders and us, the young ones. They still think the way they grew, that's how we are growing.
Okay.
Yeah, and these are the loggerheads we are having, and we end up not solving the situation of teenage pregnancies, early marriages in our communities. Because if you can see closely, in an area where I come from, the rate of teenage pregnancy is at 11.6%.
Where do you come from?
From Kasese. Yeah, we're above the prevalence of our nation, which is at 6.5. You see that? So I come from the source of
teenage pregnancy, of
teenage.
device.
Yes. So what I'm speaking out of experience.
And you've seen it.
Yeah, our parents and our elders have not accepted the fact that though we still have good children who abstain, girls are moving on, boys are abstaining, but still we have this 1, 2, 3 young men who are having intercourse. Yeah. And this has become a challenge for our parents to accept, because they've seen their child growing up. They think that's how their child is up to a certain age. There's one day we are conducting a pilot study. It was for FP, and when we reached a certain health center 3, we found this young girl. She was around 14, 15.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and she had just had a HIV test result, and she was shivering. She was crying. Yeah, she had just set herself apart. Yeah, and she had nothing to do to add on what she had just gotten as the results. And when we reached there, we saw the girl. She was crying. Me, I went and met her personally. I said, because I as if I
could see she was in deep thoughts.
Yeah. So now when I reached there, this young lady didn't even speak to me. I said, "Now what's up?" This young girl, she was just shivering with the results in her hands. So this directly indicates that these young girls, whether 15, 14, are having sex, yeah?
And we're not talking about it.
And we are not talking about it. And we are thinking our children are okay. Now, as elders and as our political leaders, should we really sit back and think everything is okay?
That's where we're going to come. Thank you so much, Alina. Honorable, good to have you here. The last time we were here, you gave us a very pertinent conversation of a girl you saved from being married off, and later she ran back. This conversation still stuck to me up to today, of how society, as in one or the other, embedded these practices among us. Today, while we're talking, Honorable, with all these interventions going on, why are the cases keep coming again and again? Are we having wrong models of intervention? Are we having wrong vehicles of information? Why are the cases still coming up?
For me, first of all, I'm glad that you invite me to continue discussing these issues, although it should be discussed by the people I handed over the mantle to.
Very much so.
Because I came out, I shouted, I gave my story, I know the challenges and problems of girl children. And what is disturbing me these days that we had fought and achieved certain levels, but now we are in reverse. It is not only reverse on the girl child, but reverse in every area, beginning with reverse of governance. Now, I want to say that different strategies and different means must be applied to different different generations,
Fit for purpose.
as she's saying. When I look before my generation, I mean, God, other marriages were the normal.
Back in the days.
They were the normal. They were child pregnancy. The word child pregnancy did not exist because other marriages were the normal. And therefore, my mothers, when they married at their age of 16, at whatever, there was marriage.
Yeah.
So then, there were no child marriages because child marriages were
was
not.
normalized.
That was what was. And therefore, there was no other pregnancy. In their language, in their culture, in what it was, that was normal. Now, during my time, other pregnancy was simply not acceptable. Pregnancy out of marriage was unconceivable and unacceptable. And we know if you go to every culture, the punishments that were given. For me, when I was growing up, my mother, they warned me against pregnancy. When she took me to Weranyanji at the time I was 13 years, and we passed through a valley. There was a huge swamp, very scaring huge swamp for a girl of 13. There was skeleton of the vehicles which had fallen there. You know what a swamp is. These days, those swamps are spoiled because of the spoiling of environment. They are not there. So, now, no mother can even scare any more girl with a swamp. But my mother told me, if you ever got pregnant, don't come back home. Throw yourself in that swamp. I looked at the swamp. By then, I didn't know what it meant to be pregnant.
Yeah.
I didn't know what did you do to become pregnant.
Yeah.
I didn't know how people got pregnant.
Yeah.
But I got so scared that swamp, I keep telling people, for me, I was nurtured and prevented from getting pregnant
By the swamp.
by the swamp. Because when I would be coming back, I looked at the swamp, I said no to me. And I think, was it in year 2 or year 1 when we read Introduction to Biology, McKean? When I read that book, I found that I knew how to get pregnant. So I said, so getting pregnant is a voluntary action on your part. If it is, never will I become pregnant.
You made a decision.
So every time I walked, I saw the swamp. When the boys from Ntaro Weranyanji came for dance and music, when they are making their points, my mind switches
The swamp.
to the swamp. Even when I was during the holidays, when I'm at fetching water, the boys would come, of course, they are making points. It's not just now. These people should not think that for them, they have started today. The boys would come when I'm fetching water, they are talking points and mark you. By that time, you are a teenager, the feelings are there, everything is there, but the swamp. The swamp.
Yeah, it kept you at
So
bay.
what am I coming with on the conclusion of this swamp? And what protected me up to the time I married? Terrorism. For us, our parents were bringing us up, I think, in a terrorist way.
With the terror.
Don't do this, don't do that, no explanation, no reason, no nothing. But because we saw it as that is the way,
You picked up.
we picked it up and we lived like that. Becoming pregnant was like killing a person. In those times, would you kill a person? So you wouldn't, because it was unconceivable and it was not right. Now, as I talk right now, fast forward, getting pregnant has become normal. It's like normal, it's like it's okay, it's like, no, it was not okay. And now that it has become like okay, it needs, when the terrorism got off, there was no substitute for terrorism.
Models, yeah.
Mark, I also got children. For me, the way I brought up my children was like my parents brought me up.
Yeah, because you can only give what you have.
This is it. I could only give what I have. Who
Yeah.
counseled me in bringing up children? I remember one time my boys were telling, but mommy, those were your days.
These are our days.
I said, you wait. My days brought me into a lawyer, into a doctor that I am, into a member of parliament that I am, but your days are taking you to nothing on the street. And I would carry my children down to Owino. I carry them.
That is your swamp now.
I carry them to Owino. And I stand there and they see these men carrying, these big sacks of charcoal on the back, young boys carrying, and they were looking. I said, They look, and I say, you see where your days are taking you? And I am telling you, all my boys,
So
there is no single child of mine who talked to me of having pregnanted a child, a girl, bringing me a baby
granddaughter before
outside
time.
marriage. No, they grew, even up to now, the children they have is those children whom they have. There is one boy of mine who delayed to marry, but I was asking, but now that you have delayed, is there any grandchild whom you can bring me? He said, no, mommy, I don't have any. So what am I saying now? That the changing environment calls for changing circumstances. And if there is changing circumstances, we as parents also must respond accordingly. They must respond accordingly. I do not think that my daughters, my granddaughters, will be nurtured the way I nurtured my children or the way I was nurtured. And having said that, I bring it now within the context
of
the issue which I have fought for all my life, of gender equality and women's empowerment. The more we go along the journey of equality and empowerment, the better and more strategies we must employ to see the situation moving. Okay? So for me, what I make to the parents, those days we would never sit with our parents. They just put command and you follow.
It was a barracks
but
model.
these days, I didn't know how to get pregnant at 13 years. And I got my period actually when I was already in senior school. The girls here at 11, they get their periods. The girls at 6, they know what is happening. Why? Because of modern technology. So everything has changed such an extent that the parent must change, the teacher must change, everybody, the society and environment must change to take into account what has changed and be able to devise strategies to sort out the problem. Why do they say that we could not sort out of the problem? Because I was the poorest of the poor. If I tell you my story, I wrote it in the book, but I persevered and it continued. I saw a young lady who was talking very nicely from Kasese, but she said, for those girls who simply cannot, for those girls who cannot abstain, what is it that makes you not to abstain?
The dynamics.
What is it? Which dynamics? And weren't we also girls? You think we didn't have these boys? We think we didn't have what? But we need together, as a community, as a society, by the way, the issue of community and society, ethical values and integrity, where the whole of village nurtured us. If an old woman like my mother found me at the well, and I'm, whether there is a cowboy discussing with me, mama, whether I'm laying there, she has a right to discipline me,
you,
including beating me. Now that we have lost our community, now that we have lost the family nurturing, what can we substitute it with? These are the things I'm thinking we should be discussing, and all of us together with culture, with government, with the religious leaders, so that we may see our life continuing the way it was.
Honorable Matemba, I really love your submission because it's looking at a multi-sector approach to this. Director, when you listen to Matemba use the Terra model she got from the mother, This time she replaced the swamp with a winnow. And somehow her children actually came through. Reproductive Health Uganda seems to have a nationwide spectrum of this conversation of teenage pregnancy, defilement, and all that. From where you sit and stand, Director, how bad is the picture? And what models can we employ now? Because that's what Matembe is looking for. That's what Alina is looking for. That's what we, the media, we want to amplify. What models can we employ at this timely moment?
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrew. I want to really appreciate Honorable for dissecting the issue from the historical perspective to the current situation. And she speaks to the whole continuum of the change.
True.
And it resonates with the discussion, mindset change. Yeah, with that changes, if our minds don't follow and change as the situation changes, then we remain stuck in the past. The situation today is really one which is challenging, and I'm happy that the country as a whole is discussing about the issue. I keep saying that if there is anything COVID gave us, all the others were negative, but COVID gave one thing, to put us on the table and discuss
As a family.
as a family. It is not that teenage pregnancy is starting now. The Uganda Demographic Health Survey in 2016 showed that teenage pregnancy, the rate had increased from 24% to 25%. That means that for every 4 young girls,
One would get pregnant.
one of them gets pregnant before the age of 19.
Oh, God.
Either she's pregnant or she's carrying a baby. I want to give you 2 stories that shows you the magnitude of the problem. There is an organization called Life Africa. They did a study. They talked to a parent in Gulu. Can you imagine the pain, what goes through a parent? She had a child of 14 and a child of 17, and both got married, pregnant.
Ooh.
Do you know how tough it is? The other day we were in Fort Porto City.
At the World Population Day.
No, the world population there was in Kumi. During COVID, there was this university student. I don't want to mention the university. He had impregnated 9 girls.
One boy.
In a space of 2 months.
9
9.
girls.
He was a parent of 9. And this boy was hardly 22. So you can just, assuming that you are the parent of that boy, assuming that you are the parents of the 9 girls, where are they going? So you just see a disaster.
Yeah.
But the beauty now is that government is discussing, civil society is discussing, Honorable Matembe is discussing.
As ever.
As ever. So the whole country now is joining the Matembes of this country, who have been, and we want to applaud Honorable for being a champion.
She has been consistent in this.
Yesterday we were in another platform, and she mentioned something which was life-changing.
Yeah.
She said, we need to review our cultural values, which don't empower the girl, which relegates the girl to a second citizen. And that is where the issue is. So if we are to look at interventions, of course we need a multi-sectoral approach.
Yeah.
One, how are we addressing the girl child? How do we bring up the Matembes? We cannot use the terror approach now.
No.
It doesn't
We
work.
can't. Actually, science has revealed that the persuasive approach, which appeals to the mind of the person, has a lasting impression as compared to threatening, and then they discover that you can survive with it, and they move on. The second one is, what is the community doing? What is the school doing? What are the parents doing? What is the government doing? No program will cause impact to a nation unless it is government-led. So it starts with the government. Government has a responsibility. Has it created the policy conducive environment that
For this
facilitates change and protects our young girls?
That brings me to the East African Sexual and Reproductive Health Bill. I attended the public hearing of this bill, and I could see the mixed feelings from the cultural backgrounds and the religious leaders, especially when it got to the issue of safe abortion and teenage pregnancy, and the girls who were pregnant to stay in school or rebound in school after giving birth. From your context, Director, do you think if this bill is passed, it will save us some of these incumbencies that we're grappling with as a country?
Of course, there are controversies. Which
And we're still at consultation levels.
Yes.
Yes.
And I don't want this to derail. Uganda has, I want to say, without fear, we are slightly lacking behind among our our member countries as an East African community. And we need first even to make gains to cover the issues which are, like for example, teenage pregnancy. I want to mention this, the basics. COVID showed us that the home where the young person is supposed to be safest is unsafe.
True.
And the evidence is there. The teenage pregnancy. In
The defilement cases.
yeah, UNFPA conducted a study and revealed that there are countries where, there are districts where teenage pregnancy increased by 36% compared to before COVID. 26%. Actually, 3 districts had teenage pregnancy increasing by over 20%.
Wow.
That shows the situation.
Yes,
But
yeah.
none, except very few districts, maintain the same level. So the question is, this happened at home. So how do we make home safe?
Safe for them.
It is when we address, when we address the man.
Male engaging.
Because the girls don't make themselves pregnant. It is a man out there. So the idea of bringing the man on board at all levels, from when they are at school, when they are in the community, and then we have the laws. We don't need additional, but we need to enforce them. But for as long as we are witnesses to celebrating teenage mothers, teenage pregnancy, early marriages, then we are endorsing. Then the other one is, but there are certain basics. One is, take for example the adolescent health policy. That is an instrument which is supposed to be guiding communities how to deal with adolescents, guiding health facilities, how to attract young people to access to services. We know our society is segmented. They are the young ones who grow up under protection, who grow up in walls. Now, these are the young people whom we should go with messages of abstain and you move further. It is normal to be a virgin up to the university.
Yes.
Those are messages,
normalize.
and the religious leaders need to come on board. Models, those are the ones. Then we have this category of young people who are having sex to survive in refugee camps,
Poverty.
in Owino, in Katanga, in Bwaise. I want to give you another story. I took a visit to Bwaise. We have a program there.
In Bwaise.
In Bwaise.
It's called the Lost City in there.
A place called Kichimumbasa.
Yes, Kichimumbasa, yes.
We think we are flying to middle income, but you go there.
But which middle income?
I'm telling you, we reached there.
Yes.
We went to one of our peer educators, and trust me, this young girl, so maybe we are clients. And she's the one knocking with, Mommy, client has come. What do you tell me? What do you tell such a young person?
Oh dear. Because this is the vice with the mother.
She's now the marketeer. So we need programs that cater for all the segments. And that's why the ABC model, abstain for those who can abstain. Be faithful for those who can have stable relationships. But for those who are in vulnerable situations, they really need to be given access to a condom for purposes of due protection. HIV is silently waiting, he mentioned. They also avoid teenage pregnancy. But one thing, to talk about teenage pregnancy, you should talk about contraception.
That's true.
Okay, it has side effects, fine. But nobody can point at somebody who has died because of contraception. So we need to talk about this. These are the realities. A girl who has given birth, if you don't give contraceptives, she will get the next baby in 3 months. She's ready for another baby because the defiler
is still present.
It's just around the corner. The abuser is around the corner. It could be an uncle, it could be a brother, it could be
the father.
So we need, and we need to allow our young people to access, and we need to make them. Now there is another one which people don't want to talk about. Let's also tell our young people that, okay, you've now, an abuser is chasing you. She overwhelms you, she rapes you. Now we have 2 windows for this person. There is post-exposure prophylaxis to prevent this young person from getting HIV/AIDS. But there is also another one that can protect her from teenage pregnancy. And that is emergency contraception. These young people need to be told that, okay, if things have happened,
this is
walk
how
to
we
the pharmacy,
the situation.
Ask for it. There is one called Lydia, there is one called Postino. Now, you can deal with the situation when she has been saved.
But director, what is she going to use to buy the contraceptives? Because the poverty levels in this country are daring.
That is where the point. And this is what I always say. If Uganda government can import millions and millions of condoms, let's also have emergency contraception available
in the same volume
given by the government, and let's tell it will reverse teenage pregnancy by maybe 50%. I
come back to you, Alina.
Yes.
The conversation, someone actually sent you a message I wanted to read before I go to Alina. Someone called Loy Elvis on Twitter. He says, thank you so much. I love this conversation, Chamagero, and I'm grateful that you're having a great panel. It's the same conversation people are having. Men were always looked at as perpetrators of this. Engaging us, it's always looked as a waste of time. NGOs, CSOs are spending money to talk about the girl, and they engage us last with the police, with the court, with the jail. Now, this brings me to you as a peer educator.
Yeah.
These are opinions of the men out there.
Yeah.
When you talk to the men, the boys who impregnate the girls because you're coming from a red spot of teenage pregnancy.
Yes.
Do they have a mindset issue that they can actually change from this? Or are they like those who believe that the more girls give you babies, the more wealth you're going to become over time? What are some of these beatitudes we need to disrupt as media when we're sending down the information?
Okay, well, thank you. When you look closely, we the young men are always neglected. They have always left out the male seed in fighting these issues of teenage pregnancy, of early marriages. And they've always focused on the females.
Yep.
You get the point?
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. You know, when we are debating, we can always
interrupt. We are having a conversation.
Yeah. I want to put one matter clear. This whole thing of neglecting men and women, and they say they have always been neglected. I want to make it clear and say that that is the thinking now, and if you call it the time now, we shall talk about strategies of dealing with the situation. But the people listening to us and raising that question, especially the young one, need to know why there came a struggle for gender equality and women's empowerment. Because culturally, religiously, historically, whatever
Yeah.
I am not aware of anything that had ever discriminated
A man.
against a man or a young child, a young boy. It is not there. Now, when we came in because we were discriminated against, treated unfairly and justly, being bought as property, belonging to men as their property, and we said no, no. We are human beings created in God's image as equal partners in this world. And therefore, we must fight all those things that demean us, that discriminate us, so that we are raised from the feet, raised from the bottom, raised from the head, the back, not the head because we had never been there, but put at the right side where God created us from the rib, side by side. And that's what we started fighting for. And when you keep saying that we left out men, me as a member of parliament, as a women member of parliament, as Ackford, as whoever, whenever we called people to discuss the gender question, we would bring in men. And if you go to Mbarara, and ask my constituency, by the time I left Mbarara, men and women knew the value of a girl child
And the boy child.
and of a woman. They knew them. Now I want to give him a chance now by saying that now, because we have traveled that journey, other things have come in.
And they've evolved.
Other challenges have evolved. Therefore, my call is, let's now, in Nankore, they say you get a stone and throw it into the bush.
And you see what's coming.
See which animal has come out. If it is just a monkey, you know the weapons you must use and people you must call to help you.
Yes.
If it is a lion, you know the weapons you need and the teamwork you need to deal with it. Now, if by throwing a stone into the bush, we have now come out to find that, by the way, the men have gone into the hiding. The women's empowerment has scared the men so much and the young boys that they are disappearing and hiding.
How do we bring them back?
It has hit their ego. Then that is a new subject which we should discuss and deal with, rather than blaming what we did.
Honorable, I hear you. We're not playing blame games here. But Alina, I want the context. The Honorable has actually brought it much more better. But where do we find the solutions without playing victim cards or blame games, but as well as addressing the issue and the need on the ground?
Okay, now, in this case, therefore, if our parents or our leaders consider the male child in that when it is to if issues of education are coming in, all of them are gone, because we have realized that when a mom or a dad wants to protect their children from teenage pregnancy, they will prefer that if I educate my girl child, maybe she will control herself. If a boy drops out of school, no, he will sort himself out. You see that? And forgetting that this boy who is going to sort himself out is going to look for a family. Yeah?
Yeah.
He'll start hunting for a girl and they become family, increasing teenage pregnancy. So one, we should focus on educating both genders. You know,
what kind of education should we give the boy child? Because now, from the context of what Honorable is saying, is that the boy child seems to be entitled because of the patriarchy society.
Yeah,
where we come
they
from.
are entitled for everything.
They're entitled. We are in charge. We are in control. So, what kind of education could be fit for the purpose, for the conversation of gender equality, that the boy child can work hand in hand with the female without diminishing and suppressing their dreams and ambitions in life?
Okay, now, for the boy child, if we can start addressing issues of reproductive health related and empower boys to be, in fact, the teachers. Like I'm a peer educator in my community. I go and teach ladies about how they can handle themselves when they get health-related issues sexually. Yeah, and it gives them a sense of belonging, that, okay, if a gentleman can speak to me things concerning, then I think he has a point, because I would be the person chasing her, chasing for her, but now it's me trying to guide her. But you realize that when still it comes to...
And the question comes,
yes,
will you then hear to her when she says that you're wrong? Because again, you're still in charge of the conversation of the gender.
Yes.
And we are looking at a scenario, because of the changing dynamics, we are looking at a scenario where you're going to tell her that this is wrong. And she's equally going to tell you that, by the way, Sam, what you're equally doing on the other side is wrong. Are you, as a male child, open to this kind of positive criticism, that you're going to take it in full harmony and the two of you are going to work hand in hand?
Now,
do we see that on ground?
Now that's what I was waiting for. Now, you see, just because the male child has not been educated enough, they will deny it. Yeah? They will keep on
and that's
chasing.
Why, so how do we change the denial? Because that's where the problem is, I think.
Yes. Now, what's wrong with either our government empowering schools with adolescent healthy policy, now most especially empowering the young men to be more engaged, because you realize that they are always the source of these teenage pregnancies. Women are always somehow innocent, the girls, but these gentlemen who are trying to discover here and there are the ones chasing them. Now, if we can really focus on men and young boys, yeah, in empowering or teaching, reaching out some other giving out some other methods or ways they can help a young child. This can really help. They can adhere, because now you see
some I'm not going to allow you to go beyond that. Honorable, I want to engage about the issue of empowering the boy.
Yes,
and,
that one. Okay.
I really want to come to you when it gets to empowering in tandem with wealth creation for the families and the communities where we come from. Do you think if the male gender is empowered economically to understand that these sexual and reproductive decisions are economically affecting them over time, will that change the conversation?
In fact, let me tell you, what we are discussing are many subjects within one
context.
One context. And of course, when you are discussing them, they may confuse one another. Now, this, I want to say that whatever we are discussing must be placed within the economic situation
very much so
of the country, of the family, of the individuals, of everybody. Because the causes of gender, I mean of child marriages and these early pregnancies are different.
That's true.
And one of them, one major one, poverty, which is world nationwide,
poverty.
Is poverty. And this very poverty leads to the next one, ignorance. Because anybody who knows that the girl child is as important as the boy. And by the way, let me tell you, don't, all of you listening to me, don't condemn me and don't think that I'm once again prioritizing a girl child. I can assure you, a girl child is in fact generally more useful, I'll not use the word important, more useful to the parents than the boy.
You're sounding like the president on teachers.
Generally, I'm telling you, because even a girl child who doesn't go to school, who goes in prostitution and brings small monies to the parents, but a boy child Who has lost it? I'm looking at these ones whose poverty have destroyed. Who has lost it and he's a robber robbing the community, he'll come and rob his parents. I'm telling you, that is the truth. A poor girl child who has managed to get out and be a prostitute and produce children of a poor parents, she's always caring for the parents. You'll bring some small thing. I saw them, I used to see them. But a boy child who is lost because of poverty and suffering, and he's a robber and a drunkard, he will come and beat the father and get the coin that he has. This is the truth.
Clear mindset.
I have seen it, and it happens. So actually, promoting a girl child, not at the cost of the boy child, yes, but advancing a girl child's life benefits the parents. I mean, I'm a parent. I have seen. I know what I'm talking about. So the one of the I was telling you about
the economic
is the main one, is the bad one. It leads to lack of education. Because me, I am who I am
because of education,
and I can speak the way I can speak. Forget the environment I came from, where my parents had to remove me from school to put a boy who was not doing well and I was doing better. We had to fight for myself to get a bursary, to continue studying. I am who I am because I am educated and I can determine my economic power. You hear?
Yes.
So education, lack of education has a serious impact on these issues we are discussing. Unless even lack of education, and then the lack of government on considering or making priorities of what it should do. I am who I am because I got scholarship.
The government was intentional.
Yes, I am who I am because at Makerere, you know, you were talking of poor girls who can't get pads and so on. Yeah, my people were poor, but I could get what I get. But at Makerere, the food is there, the hostel is there, and all they give me no fees, school fees. So I went through and I'm who I am. But right now, every girl, every boy, poor must find their own accommodation, must find their own school fees, must come out. So the government
So it's a governance
has
issue
lost it. It has lost it because it doesn't know the poor.
Doesn't know the rich.
It knows it. The rich are rich. They are thinking rich.
Yeah. The gap is.
The poor are suffering, and the gap is increasing. And the government, I'm sorry, I'm provoked to say this. I can assure you, our government that is not interested in its people, especially the vulnerable and the suffering. It is not interested in them.
I really want to get in there, Director. That inclusion aspect brings me to the PWDs, the people with special abilities. How has this conversation of reproductive health in one or the other found them in the real lane of the information we are disseminating to them? Because maybe they are not able to walk to the health center, maybe they are not able to be met by the peer educators, maybe the structures deny them the access to information. How are we covering them with this conversation of teenage pregnancy and early motherhood?
Yeah, thank you. Even before I come to that, I just wanted to join the conversation on male involvement.
Yeah.
I must say that over time, government has recognized this, that if you want to create a lasting change, you need the men on board. So there is male involvement guidelines.
And the strategy is awesome.
Yes, yes. And the government-led process, WHO came in strongly, and we have now a strategy. Reproductive Health Uganda piloted an innovative program on male involvement way back in 2005. Trust me, it was a 5-year program, 2005 to 2009.
Involvement in
sexual and reproductive health. it was in 3 districts, Pushenyi, Hoima, and Arua.
Okay.
I want to tell you, out of 30 schools, we implemented the program. We had also control schools, which we didn't have the program. Interestingly, and the intention was, let the men be empowered to become partners. It was called young men as equal partners in sexual and reproductive health. In those schools, after 1 year, the young boys were so much engaged. After 2 years, the girls took over.
Okay.
In 2 years, 3 years, it was the girls who are now becoming the head girls. It was the girls who are becoming the best candidates in P7 in Senior 4. It was ironical because we were targeting the boys,
but the
results were seen in the girls. What happened was that these girls are so much frustrated by the environment the boys create, by harassing them, by doing all kinds of things. But when we targeted the boys, they turned away from running after them, but to be supportive. When a girl gets periods, you know, in upper class, they don't know when these things come. They are the ones saying, oh, you have dotted your clothes. Can you go and see? In the schools, we didn't talk to the schools to do this, but the schools started putting up shelters and separating the ones for younger girls and then the older ones. Who was doing the advocacy? It was the boys, because they have the power. So the idea of bringing the men on board is really timely. We just need the government to roll out the strategy, to invest in it, to bring partners on board, and then we implement it, and the change will happen.
So do you feel in one or the other that there is possibly lack of political will to roll out this agenda, possibly on a whole scale?
I think there is the political will, but sometimes we have a number of interventions which we know can work, but they don't come to the priority. Yeah, that's where the challenge is.
So the priority scale.
The priority.
May I ask one thing? Because for me, I look at the males and females involvement in the whole concept of gender equality
yes.
and women's empowerment. Not just one aspect of that, because reproductive health is an aspect of gender, I mean empowerment, empowerment. Because usually in reproduction, although reproduction is the role of a man and a woman, when I'm teaching my people, I tell them, the women, when I'm empowering them, I tell them they should be proud that they are God's factories. They are God's factories because God made their wombs to manufacture human beings. And then men also tell me, but we also contribute in childbearing.
Of course
I tell them, yes, factories have workers. And yes, they have workers. And let me tell you, some of these workers are part-time.
Others are full-time.
That's why we are discussing
Others
the
are
issue.
permanent. So we're discussing part-time.
The reason why we are discussing this very issue is because of that issue of workers in the factory. Because they part-time, at times they miss out on work, at times they work for a year and go. Because you can one day make a girl pregnant and disappear, but the mother will rear this child even to become the president of this nation, of the nation. So yes, reproductive role is for both of us, but most of it impacts more
first by the woman.
On the woman, because remembering even God told the woman that in childbearing
you will feel the pain.
You will have the pain. And therefore when we are talking of reproductive health and involvement of men, I want us to put it within that huge concept of gender equality and women's empowerment. And I want to say, that it is very, very important, which you in your productive health you should rise up, and everybody of us with the new strategy I was talking about, that we need to rise up again and conduct maybe education which tells the men that actually empowering a woman does not affect his manhood. Because this whole culture, this mindset, the moment the woman becomes strong, the man who has been told that he is a man, after all, he's a man, he's the boss, he's in charge, and does not know what is it that makes him a man, but just because he's a man, the moment he sees the empowerment of the woman, they sort of coil. They don't look at it or welcome it as positive. They look at it as negative, as they are coming to take their place in society.
Which is
and therefore that thing has destroyed or is negativating the whole struggle of gender equality and women's empowerment. As I told you, I said that for me, I wanted a woman to be picked from the foot, from the bottom, from the back to the side. I didn't say she should go on the head, because God never put her on the head, and I don't want her to go on the head. But what happens when men see women coming up, then they think that they are going to be on the head, and so they fall off with their ego, with their whatever. So that is what needs to be looked into now and addressed, and get the man to know that you man and you are woman or your sister, I mean, you are all people and you are good. That's why my family, in my family, I have daughters in love, I have sons in love, but my children, the boy, you will find the boy with the wife, they are bathing their baby together, they are
because
cooking,
that is the compliment.
and they are working together, and because they have seen it, that it doesn't disturb their status and their position.
Well, much so. Well, because of time, ladies and gentlemen, time won't allow us, but I really want to thank you so much. I want to thank those who have given us feedback on Twitter in one way or the other. What Honorable Miriam is saying, that the male engagement vulnerability is the new masculinity. You lose nothing by being vulnerable, and you lose nothing by working in tandem with the other gender to bring the conversation back home. We had in studio Jackson Chekweko, who happens to be the Executive Director of Reproductive Health Uganda. We had Alina Sam, a peer educator from Kasese, and Honorable Miriam Mateme. This program was powered by Reproductive Health Uganda. As we're finalizing this conversation, the call to action is, let's start to have these honest and comfortable conversations from our homes to our villages to the national level. Good afternoon.